Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, Minister Fitzgerald, I'd like to welcome you into your new post and responsibilities and to wish you very well in that. It's a big challenge. This is a report to An Taoiseach and Kenny on a review of the action taken by An Garda Síochána pertaining to certain allegations made by Sergeant Maurice McCabe. And it's a report by Sean Guerin on the 6th of May 2014. The first page of his conclusions, which is page 329, captures to an important degree the essence of the following conclusions. And it's worth reading them, I think. In any organisation, this is 21, conclusion and recommendations, in any organisation whose members face the significant daily challenges and pressures that must be borne by those whose duty it is to ensure the security of the state and the safety of its citizens, a critical voice is in danger of being heard as a contrary voice. Now, I'm going to suggest that that could apply to the two political parties that form the government of this country. Because it is the duty of those two parties as a government, or the leaders of those parties, to ensure the security of the state and the safety of its citizens. And this report, these conclusions go on to talk about that a critical voice is in danger of being heard as a contrary voice. The paradigm of the whistleblower is an unattractive one. The whistleblower, like the referee from whom he gets his name, is seen as someone who is not on the team. The challenge of accommodating and learning from legitimate criticism is always going to be a difficult one, especially in a disciplined force. Okay, so we've got An Garda Síochána, they're the protectors of the peace. They're there to ensure the safety of the security of the state and the safety of the citizens. And it operates by a chain of command. Command is orders and instructions. So it's very hard sometimes to understand the necessity, the philosophical necessity of being able to have a critique of that chain of command. Blind obedience comes to mind. Unquestioned obedience comes to mind. And orders and instructions are pervasive. Now, I'm going to use the analogy here to talk about the political parties and what the experience has been in this 31st Dáil. Because there has been an unquestioned and an unchallenged obedience to the whip system under certain debates and situations that merited criticism, justified criticism. We have the Economic Management Council, which is a new method of controlling the cabinet. The Taoiseach, the Taoiseach, the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Public Expenditure are dominant by their frequent meetings and policy making for this country and their influence on the cabinet, which is supposed to be constitutionally a collective and democratically collective decision making. And we've seen through certain pieces of legislation, the most recent one last year was the proposal to abolish the Seanad.
We're speaking on the statement
Correct.
on the Guerin Report.
We're talking
Would
about
you be able
in
to
any
speak
organisation whose members face the significant daily challenges that must be borne by those whose duty it is to ensure the security of the state and the safety of its citizens.
Yeah, and we're speaking. The statements are on the Guerin Report.
There is no organisation that forms the government that's more relevant to that statement as a platform for this report than what I've just said.
If you could speak to the report, that's all I'm asking.
I'm going to go on to another part of this summary conclusions on the first page. While it's beyond the scope of this review to make any determination of the complaints Sergeant McCabe has made, the documentation examined gives cause to share the concern expressed in them, and for the reasons outlined in this report, there is cause for concern as to the adequacy of the investigations that have taken place into those complaints and as to whether all appropriate steps have been taken. I should, and this is really important, I should also advert briefly at this point to an issue which is featured extensively in the documents I've examined, but which is beyond the scope of my terms of reference. That is the experience that Sergeant McCabe has had within An Garda Síochána since making his complaints. I've seen extensive documentation, including the third volume of the 3 booklets furnished to the Minister for Justice and Equality by Sergeant McCabe's solicitors in September 2012, which gives cause for concern about the personal and professional consequences for Sergeant McCabe of his having made the complaints examined in this report and other similar complaints. It is not for me to express any view on those matters, except to say that Sergeant McCabe's experience calls for examination. And I'm going to use the analogy again. The experience of members of political parties, which are organisations similar to the organisation of An Garda Síochána, insofar as they form government. The experience of some of those members as a result of being critical, not being contrary, critical of certain things, has been appalling. That whip system that the government parties have operated has been absolutely relentless and is very similar to that relentless chain of command which has been unquestioned and used incorrectly in not dealing with fairly the justified criticisms within An Garda Síochána. I'm making these points to the Minister to bring to Cabinet for reflection. Nobody in this House should ever be under orders or instructions when there is a justified matter under debate or consideration or even voting.
Thank you, Deputy.
To have consequences that are against the principles of democracy and have deprived these members of a position on committees to which they are justified in their membership. Those consequences, just as the consequences in this report should be examined by this Parliament.